Transition over. And it's Saturday. It's Saturday night. It's Saturday night.
Saturday night.
On a Wednesday. It's Real Unfiltered Talk. I'm James Bryant, along with world champion angler Dion Hibdon, and happy Wednesday night, Dion. How you doing?
It's good to be here.
Is it?
Yeah, not
All
too
right.
bad anyway.
Cool.
Had better, had
You gonna
worse.
check us, tech man? You logging in, Ron? Nope. All right, I'm gonna make sure somebody checks in. How was your week last week? Did you do anything?
Yeah, it was good. I played golf a couple days. Fished one day.
Yeah?
It was all good.
Do you think Peyton's gonna call this evening?
He should. He should. I mean,
It's 6 o'clock.
I
He's
like to
called
get
every
him-
week for the last 3 weeks at 6, so he's
normally
been consistent.
waits for about 5 minutes into the show.
I think we should put him on tonight, actually.
I turned my phone off. So
Yeah, I'm turning mine up, see if I can hear myself talk here. All right. Hey, the sound works.
there you go.
All right, so that's hey, we're at a trifecta. I said something bad's gonna happen tonight because
Everything's
everything's kind of working. Yeah.
Everything's on.
You know, I got to tell you, this has been a boring week for me.
It's very uneventful,
There's
isn't it?
nothing going
Yeah.
on at all. It's just kind of, I don't know. So I thought tonight we're just gonna go straight into tech talk. We're gonna talk about a bunch of stuff. I
There
thought
you
I'd
go.
just pick your brain because not everybody has the opportunity to, and I do.
Okay.
But we need to chat about something because as this is Real Unfiltered Talk, and we talk about
Gotcha.
a lot of things that are off, the chart a little bit. Nothing is out of bounds, is what I say with our show.
Yes.
But
If they've watched one episode, they know that.
yeah, I need to clarify something. This is my favorite story. Okay. Earlier, before we got on the air, and we have a great crowd here at Bryant Sage Outdoors, the Real Unfiltered Talk Studio. Thanks everyone for coming in. Well, one of our bigger crowds tonight. It's
Yes.
nice. My dad said today we should open a bar and call it the Real Unfiltered Talk Bar, and just have like shows inside the bar. That'd be kind of cool. We'll just drink and talk, and
It would work.
we'll have a jazz band in between, and
That's right.
whatever. But here's I want to clarify to all of our listeners a little bit about myself, because I had a pretty cruddy week last week, and this is irrelevant. It's not where the story's going. But earlier, before we went on the air, Dion was saying, "Hey, I was talking to this guy, and the guy said, is that guy really a dick?" And you said, "Yes, he is." Well, that's incorrect. just so for the record, that's incorrect. I'm going to educate everyone, and I apologize for the profanity ahead of time, but there is 2 categories of men with bad attitudes. One is a dick, the other is a prick. And there is a difference, and I'm going to share this with you really quick. A dick is somebody who is arrogant, and they really don't know they're being that way. And ergo, the example would be, there's that guy, he's over there running his mouth, he's being a real dick.
Yeah.
Okay, a prick is somebody who does the same thing, but realizes they do it,
Knows
and
he's done
continue to do the same thing over and over again. I am a prick. So make sure we got that straight away. No, but guys, I have a really dry sense of humor, and that's just how we roll. And I like to challenge people, and I am a little dry.
I said that one of our viewers had told me asked me if you were, and I said, absolutely he is. You've watched the show.
Come meet me in person. You'll
That's
find out
right.
what a turd I am. So yeah, no, but it's fun. I like being dry, and that's just who I am. And I've been that way my entire life, and I'm not going to change. So
That's what it's all about.
there it is. I'm also, as much as we rely on Facebook Live, and I appreciate that venue, kind of pissed at them tonight too.
Really?
Yeah, we started a new page last week. It
Yeah.
was a Real Unfiltered page, and we transferred our members over, and we have a great following, and thank you for everyone who did that. So I went on to live stream tonight, and they said, "You're unauthorized to do so because you must have an account for 2 months." So I'm like, okay. So I linked our live feed to Bryant Sage Outdoors, and then shared it to Real Unfiltered Talk. So it should be working on both networks. So that makes me crabby. Is it working on both? Yeah, so that makes me kind of crabby too, but that's my week.
Yeah.
It was a holiday weekend. We do own a tackle store. It was busy, and people were demanding. They wanted to get on water and do some fishing. It was helter skelter. But moving into fishing talk, how was your week?
It was good. It was good. We fished one day.
Last week you said you white bassed it.
Well, this week we bass fished. I fished Thursday nighter. Me and Lawson finished second.
Did you have over 1163?
Had 14 pounds.
All right.
14 pounds. Caught probably 30 keepers in the 3 hours of the tournament. It was fun. We had a great time.
All right, it's a great transition into what I'd like to talk about tonight, and that's as we move into fishing, we're moving into summer. And as anything else, there are 4 seasons to the year. There's 4 seasons to bass fishing, in my opinion. Correct?
Yep, pretty much.
So we're moving into the summer phase. So tonight I thought I'm going to pick your brain on what's the go-to for summer patterns. First of all, let's talk about a lot. This is where we get into night fishing season as well. Correct?
Yep.
Why? Because it's too hot to fish in the day?
Too many boats.
Okay,
for
so
us,
boat traffic. Yeah, boat traffic is one indicator. I'll give you that.
Where we live.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought that it was like way too hot and guys are sissies and they like when the sun goes down we can
There's
fish.
that too.
Because that's what I would prefer. So, just in my opinion. So.
If you can stomach to be out there right now during the day, it's awesome. I mean, just because we've got a lot of water and a lot of current flow, and so there's about a 6-7 hour stretch through the middle of the day that's just lights out. I mean, it's happening.
And you don't.
And that's just because of the current flow.
You don't think the heat has an effect on that?
Oh no, not as. What it's going to do is it's going to make the good fishing last a lot longer before you have to start settling down and throwing in a pile of brush and stuff like that, like a normal summertime type deal. It keeps them out on the points a little bit longer and feeding a little bit more. And like I say, when that current channels them out there to those points to feed, that's their feeding spot. That's where they want to eat.
Well,
so normally when you find them out on a point, they're doing just that. They're eating.
Sure.
So,
Let's back up a step and let's kind of get everybody caught up. This is your first time fishing ever.
Yes. Yes.
So we've experienced rookie. We've experienced the pre-spawn, which is where they forage and prepare and get ready to move up to make their nest, lay their eggs, hatch their babies, and then they move back out.
Yep.
So we witnessed the pre-spawn. We've went through the spawn phase now, and we argued for several weeks when it would start, when it would end. Bass don't know the calendar, but we can probably both truly agree that the majority now are probably winding down.
A lot of them are, yes.
Majority. I didn't say
majority.
all. I didn't
yes,
say spawn was
majority
over. We're not going down that road.
Yep.
Just
majority of them are.
So, learned a German word earlier. I think it garden hatching
garden fry,
right, fry and garden. So no, garden fry.
Garden fry.
So no, where we're at now is majority of the fish have moved up. They've found a nest. They have laid their eggs. They have hatched some fry, and fry is a term for baby fishies, right? Baby bass. Baby bass. And now we have 2 types of fishing. We have those fish that are up protecting the fry, which is garden fry.
Small males.
Now, what would you consider in your mind to be a small male? I mean,
those 16, 17 inch, 2.5 pounders.
Okay. My 1163.
Yes, your 1163.
Got it. For those that don't know, I cannot accomplish any better than a 12-pound string, so that's my 1163 line. So 2-pounder fish are up there. We talked about it before, but do you think the bigger males pair up with the bigger females during the spawn?
I've seen it happen a lot, but then again, I've seen 10-pounders stand there with 2 little old 3/4 of a pound males.
So in your opinion, all the sight fishing you have done, that's really not the most accurate thing you've heard?
Yeah, no, not necessarily.
I always heard if you catch a monster male, then get ready because there's a big girl out there.
I kind of believe that somewhat. But it
Your
doesn't.
odds are good.
It doesn't have to be that way.
Okay. So
normally it's just like people or anything else. They kind of pair up in their ages, in their age groups. I feel like
Okay.
So if you get a 4-pound male, that's probably the same age as a 7 or 8-pound female.
Sure. That's that's going to get kind of techie tonight because the term for that is called a year class school.
That's right.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, and you correct me if I'm wrong. So, because most of the time I am. I make this up as I go. So, a year class school is when they all hatch and they stay together for the majority of their life.
For the most part, yes.
Or one adjoining school that's the same age. And that's when you're making reference to the age group is when you get a big 4-pound fish, he's probably the same age as another female fish. Therefore, this is where we get that matchup.
Yes.
Okay. So, we're good. We're moving forward. We're diving into this. So, as an angler, we're entering into those 80-degree water temperatures and 100-degree days, and not yet, but we will be. How does the world champion approach these summer months? What's the first step in getting on the water, aside of good head covering and sunscreen?
Well, you want to try to,
unless you like to burn. Are you one of those guys that like to burn?
No,
or do you like
I really don't.
No?
I try not to.
Do you rub it until it's clear, or do you leave the white crap, like all over your face?
I kind of leave it white too sometimes.
Yep. And the reason I'm asking you that is because here's the next fallacy that I've heard, and you can answer this. You have to thoroughly wash your hands, or the bat's going to smell that stuff down your line.
That's a theory. There's a lot of people don't like that stuff on their bait. I'm not sure what sunscreen has in it, but whatever it is, there's a lot of people believe that it's not good. Right. Fish tasted or something. I personally don't believe that much. I think his sniffer and his tasters, the last two things he uses, everything that he does is virtually by sight, and vibration. So
okay.
So I think his nose and his tasters probably low on the list.
Okay. So
I don't like nasty stuff on my hands.
Nobody likes it greasy because odds are
I don't like oily type stuff, or if I launch my boat, I'm back there messing around the motor, or if I put gas in on the way to the lake or something like that, I wash my hands.
I do not like gas on my hands.
No, I don't either.
I don't mind gas on my hands, but when I'm fishing, I don't like that gas or oil on my hands.
I don't like it, so I guess I do believe that they use their sniffer or something. I don't know.
It's fair.
My dad used to carry a bar of soap.
Okay.
Carried it right down there in his Ranger cup holder right beside his seat. And by the end of the season, that was the nastiest piece of crap you ever seen in your life. Because it would just turn into goo before it was over with. He'd reach down in there and he'd get it all under his fingernails and stuff. Come out there and he'd be washing his hands, But he kept his hands clean if he thought something was on.
This is going to sound weird, but you want to know my secret to getting rid of smell off your hands when you're fishing?
What's that?
I'll pull up next to a dock, and I'll take my hand and rub it down the side of the foam where that green algae is, and that will cut any stink off of your hand.
Really?
Your hands will smell like algae.
Will smell like algae.
Yeah, but you know what? It doesn't.
It's a natural
it doesn't smell like fuel. It doesn't smell like. And it. I'm telling you, it works. There's a guy in the crowd. He's like, I'm not doing that. I'm telling you, it works. I guarantee you, it works. And I'll just take my hands and just rub them down there, wash them off, clean.
Huh.
It works. It works amazingly well. So you're going to try that one time, aren't you?
I am going to try that sometime. I'm not going to let anybody catch me doing it.
Yep.
I'll be totally alone when I do it. But
it'll cut fish.
I'm going to look up at the houses and make sure nobody's watching.
But see, I'm a huge advocate for garlic spray too. I spray everything, so I smell like an Italian factory when I get done.
That's right.
But I love, and we can get into that much down the road.
Almost all of this stuff.
I brought reference tools tonight.
Yeah.
I went to the store. I grabbed a pile of stuff because I thought we'd talk about some things if they apply. I thought you could look through the hodgepodge of crap I pulled out here and it's like, this is good, this is not good. But I have questions.
Sure.
I'm not a great angler. I'm a good angler, but I'm not a great angler. So that's why you're on the show, because you have to balance out the crappy of me with the awesomeness of you. So back to approaching the lake now. So we've gotten past that, and we know how our hands aren't going to stink, and we're getting onto the water. Now we have to identify if we're going to go find fish that are offshore, on the bank. What does one do in the summer when we start out? And are we looking at, and before we start this, are we going to talk about daytime approach, or are we going to talk about a nighttime approach?
Oh, I'm going to stick with daytime most.
All right, so we're going to stick to a daytime approach and summer fishing.
There's a little bit of nighttime stuff, but.
All right.
But really, the daytime stuff, when they get done spawning, they move to the first point they come to, and that's probably going to be a secondary of some sort.
All right.
And when I say secondary, that means not on the main lake. That's just the first point that he could swim to.
A pronounced point.
Correct? A pronounced point that jutes out off the side of a creek or something like that.
Jutes?
Jutes. Sticks out.
I remember that one.
But anyways, he's going to pull to the first point he comes to, and he's going to hang out there for a little bit. Now, in our situation here on Lake of the Ozarks right now, we have a lot of current because we've had quite a bit of rain in the last month or so, and so we have a lot of water flow. So I really don't think they stopped a whole lot on those secondaries. Okay. I think they swam right onto the main lake points for the most part. just because it's a better source. It's a better food source out there in that current. It channels the food in a little bit better. Where on a point, that's not in the current, they still got to roam around and find the food. They roam around till they find a school of shad. They're probably going to primarily be feeding on shad that time of this time of the year, just because it's the easiest thing for them to find.
Okay, three things bass eat primarily.
Crawdads, bluegill, and shad.
Shad. Yeah. Am I missing anything there? Well, not in central Midwest lakes.
Not in our part of the world.
Yeah, I mean, you get into Texas, you're looking at tilapia.
You got a million different kinds of minnows, and you have other bait fish further north, and you have other bait fish. Yeah,
ducklings. Yes,
let's not even get off on that.
It's sad, but it's true. It's sad, but it's true.
I don't want to talk about baby ducks.
Hey,
makes me sad.
Side note,
I'm listening.
I don't respond to Facebook. We have live feed. Everyone posts their stuff. Hey, Dion's looking really good, and I'm like, no, he really doesn't. I'm not going to respond to those. But Mama Stella said, hey guys, so
good.
Welcome in, Stella. Hope you're feeling better. It's good to see you online, and we'll be calling you soon, getting you scheduled on the show. So
that's right.
I had to get that out of the way because Mom always comes first.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't even act like it. So sorry, didn't mean to get there. So we're talking about bait fish, and
lots of shad oriented stuff. Just. You can catch them on topwaters in the mornings, and then late in the evenings. Shad-colored crankbaits.
No, we'll get to that.
Chatterbaits.
You're jumping the gun on my questions here.
Oh, you mean
points? We're to points now. My question next is brush important this time of year?
Not at all.
Structure important?
Not at all.
Because it seems like to me that we shift gears and everyone gets out their 10-inch power worms and goes to the brush piles and goes to work because the what's the word? Folklore. The folklore out there is that
10-inch power worm.
That post-spawn fish go out to take refuge and protect themselves and recover in structure. And you're saying not necessarily they're going to go out and eat.
They could care less.
Okay.
You don't have to throw out a piece of brush. Now that all changes as soon as it turns dark.
Okay.
When it turns dark, they don't do a lot of feeding out on them points. They kind of wrap it up, because it's hard for them to see, just like it is us. So they kind of wrap up all that aggressive feeding out on them points in the daylight hours.
Okay.
All right. But to say that you're gonna catch them on a point because it has a piece of brush on it, no, they're on the point because they're on a point right now. The brush comes a little bit later on in the season. Now, like I say, right now, there's a lot of, like tomorrow night, we're fishing a Thursday nighter.
Okay.
The last hour and a half is after dark.
Fishing with the children or fishing with your wife?
I'm fishing with my wife.
We tried to have her on tonight.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm not ready yet.
She might not be ready.
I'm not ready yet. I was like, well, what do you need?
I'm thinking you scare her a little bit.
I'm not going to... I think what she thinks it's going to be all about, sex talk.
Yeah.
And there'll probably be some, a little bit.
There's always
I'm just curious myself. But
there's some when it's just me and you.
But we always, that's part of it.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not. Yes, I'm challenging. I like to ask challenging questions, but I'm not going to embarrass her bad. But we'll try a little bit. Anyway, so you're gonna fish with your wife, and that's your Thursday night click.
Yeah.
That's date
Thursday night. So
how'd you pull off taking your wife to make date night fishing?
I tell you what, it wasn't that hard. I took her out there and they were biting once, and that was over.
She's a fair weather girl.
Yeah.
Does she tough it out when? We'll save that. We'll save that for another episode.
We'll save that for her.
Moving on. So
that's right.
Amy, the call's coming.
We're gonna
get you scheduled into.
It was easy.
Get yourself ready.
She's very, very mild mannered when it comes to the Thursday nighters until you pay your entry fee. You pay your entry fee, she turns into a whole different breed of cat.
Yeah.
Then she's pretty much mouths everybody in the tournament.
And I got it for everyone that's watching. I'm not degrading this, but let me tell you about competition. What's the entry fee on a Thursday night tournament? Is it $35?
50.
Is it 50 now? Oh, it's inflation.
It's big.
$50,
big.
yeah. And the payouts, what, maybe a couple $100?
Yeah, I think it's 300 plus to win.
Yeah, it depends on the number of boats, of course. But you guys take that just serious as a $100,000 tournament.
Absolutely.
Winning money.
I don't care if
right?
I don't care if we're fishing for that pack of worms right there. I want to beat you.
There you go. So yeah. So I'll be glad. or glad, excited. I'm looking forward to having that conversation with Amy on what it's like as a husband and wife fishing team out there on a Thursday night in the dark. Because, see, I always thought, in my mind, if I was going to fish with my girlfriend in a tournament after hours and it's dark, the goal is to get a quick limit and then find a quiet cove.
Oh,
And then, bow, chicka, bow, 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 bow. No? No. She's sitting in the crowd and she's like, that does not happen.
that does not happen.
But I wasn't going there, Amy. Jeez. I just said if
just
I
wanted to
was
see
out there.
if
I didn't
that
say
was
if
happening.
you were out
Yes.
there, but that's like incentive.
Yes.
So I think she would encourage incentive. You catch the fish and it's like, it's on.
She can't believe that we run around so insanely fast. And
So
I
you're
just
a running
tell her,
gun guy in the summer.
I am. I do.
Okay.
I do cover a lot of water. If they're not biting, I'm moving.
Should we dive into that now?
We can if you want. It doesn't
So,
matter.
we'll get to lure selection. We'll get to this pile that I've laid out here, but we'll get to lure selection. So
Right now, when they pull out on a point, if you pull up there and you make 3 or 4 casts and you don't catch one, move on, because it's not happening right there. Don't spend an hour on a point, because if they're not biting, they're not biting. Don't when they're on a point for one reason: to eat.
right.
Period.
Okay.
So if you pull up on one, they're not biting. Move to the next one. Move to another one. Move around. Get more in the wind. And so it's in a 3-hour night tournament, it's pretty easy for me. I mean, I might fish 20 points before it's over with.
Now, I understand rushing and running and gunning. And the term running and gunning is picking up and going to point and fishing. But I understand in a 3-hour tournament, an all-day or an all-night tournament, maybe not so much the case. Or
No.
still you hop up and move.
Not this time of the year.
Right.
This time of the year, they're biting somewhere.
Okay.
I mean, right now,
Now-
with the current moving. Now, like I say, this is kind of an odd deal because we have an excessive amount of current. If the current's moving and you're not catching them, you better keep moving.
Okay.
Because they are biting somewhere. And if you don't believe it, wait till you get to the weigh-in.
Now, you can tell that I'm asking a lot of questions because I'm curious myself. Are you saying to keep moving because A, the fish aren't present there, or B, they're just not eating?
If they're not eating, move on.
Because
they
you
are
can-
biting somewhere.
And we try to avoid it like the plague. But if you're using forward-facing sonar and you see those fish out there, that still doesn't mean they're going to eat, correct?
Yeah.
You see those big fish out there. I guess that's a judgment call.
And really, the ones that I want to catch, you don't really see them on forward facing. They're on the bottom.
So they're laying on the bottom.
They're pretty close to the
And
bottom.
there are guys really good at picking them out too.
Sure,
They can
sure,
see them down
absolutely.
there rolling around. So, but I guess my point is, you see that 5-pounder. I guess you don't want to be too invested in trying to make that fish bite when you probably need to go and find one that's going to eat.
I make a
You
cast.
can always come back.
I make a cast.
You know?
If I see it on my forward facing stuff, I'll make a couple of casts. If it doesn't advance, I'm moving on.
Gotcha.
Because it might not be a bass.
I'm liking this. So, okay, let's go back to daytime now. And it can be morning, afternoon, or later in the day. Because I know when it gets dark, everything changes. Correct?
Sure.
So,
Fish pull to points for one reason. It sticks out in the lake a little bit further than the rest of it, and no matter how the wind blows, it's going to blow across that point. It's going to give some water movement on that point. If you fish back in a pocket or on a certain bank, you may never get any water movement at all through the day. A point, it don't matter which way the wind blows, you're going to get some water movement out there.
sure.
And that's every little
Even a little
tidbit
touch of
helps.
wind.
A little touch of wind
Yeah,
helps,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
But with the current, it's a much easier. Then you know exactly, where they're going to be. When you pull out there on those places, and a fish won't stand in that direct current for a long period of time. But he pulls out there, he eats up real good, and then he pulls into little eddies on that point. So there'll always be a little sweet spot somewhere there where they're going to really be clustered up. And luckily enough, I've been out there enough. I know where those little sweet spots are.
Gotcha. So, in breaking down a point just a little bit more, because I was always told, or just, I shouldn't say told, I listen, and you kind of take the law of average. A sharper point, that comes out into the channel or out into the cove, it's more longer I guess, with a more defined point. You know what I'm saying? Not a big loose round one, but a more defined one. I've kind of come to the thoughts that the bass like to lay behind it on the protected side of the wind or the current to use it as a quote unquote ambush point.
Sometimes,
you believe
yes.
that?
Yep, in the current, yes.
I don't know if I sold that right, but I was trying to explain it.
Yeah.
If you have a big gradual point, they can move in, anywhere on that point. It's a broad area. If you have a 100-yard point that's really broad, but it's nice and flat, they can kind of just roam and cruise.
If you have to make 10 casts on a point to cover it, that's a pretty big point.
Yeah.
Okay? If I can pull in and make 2 casts and know I've drug my bait through the strike zone of where those fish should be, that's the best one.
Right.
That's a much easier one to fish,
Do you think that structure has like rock formation versus a flat versus chunk versus, do you think that has a big difference on those type of points in the summer?
I look for hard spots. And when I say hard spots, a tall piece of rock, something that comes up off the bottom that when I drag my jig along, it gets rough feeling or something like that. And those are almost always the little sweet spots, because I think that's where those fish.
Cover.
It's like a pile of brush, but it's not. And I think that's where those fish spend a lot of their time in the heavy current.
Okay.
Because they can tuck right in next to that rock, and that current breaks around them and stuff like that. So I always try to find the little sweet spots on a place. When you look at your GPS map, okay, everybody, 99% of boats, or paper map, where the contour lines are very tight together. Okay, does everybody kind of get a grasp on that? When the contour lines are close together, that's the steepest part. That's the deepest drop off of the point. Almost always, that's going to be the place that you have some irregular rock. Okay? Just like walking out through the woods. You walk out through the woods and you get to the edge of a hillside that breaks off really hard. Where's the rock? Where do you see the rock? It's right where it breaks off. That elevation change, a lot of time, that's where the stone is at. You see it when you walk through the woods. It's the same way on the lake. When you have a real severe drop, that's a rocky spot, is what that is. You can look on your GPS. It shows those contour lines pretty accurately on 99% of them that's out there, right now. Any of your, I can't even name all the different mapping situations.
You mean like brands?
Yeah, well,
there's
Navionics
and Lake Master, and but the thing is, most of the new electronics, they have preloaded maps.
Yeah,
and they have contour lines. It's easy to do, but paper map works just as good.
And a paper map works just as good.
Yep.
You just have to know how to read one, and get it out and look at it.
You just told them.
Yeah, it's easy to see, and 99% of the time, I'll go back after a day of fishing sometimes, and I'll get out my paper map and I'll look where I fished.
Right.
And I can almost always pick out exactly where I caught one, and it's just because, that's why they're there,
Well, it's crazy. I noticed on my electronics, and I'm not going to push brands, but there's a record button.
Yeah, sure.
You can put in an SD card and record your day.
You can
go
also
back and look at it again. I don't do that, but it's possible.
But if you had a spot where you knew, the sweet spot's right there, why not record it? Go over it, see what all's there and everything, and know exactly. There's a lot of people use that kind of technology. That use it to that extent.
They're very smart.
Yes.
Back in my crappie days, I know those guys would run, and it's in my mind at the time, I thought it was ridiculous because they had like 4 units on front of their boat.
Yeah.
But one was for their live technology, one was for side imagery, one was for 360. But typically, a guy would have an iPad, or they would have another unit, but they use Google Earth technology.
Yep.
And they did what's called overlays, and they would go back in time and find old Google Earth images when the lake was down, and they would mark structure, mark it in their computer, put the new overlay over it, and then when they went out on the water, they had all that structure. They went and spent all their time over the winter identifying those sweet spots, those big rocks that were submerged under the water, Jamie's super cool brush piles that I sunk after the water went up, and they all found them later. But yeah, it's technology is a cool thing, but on the flip side too, it also can be the death of you.
Yeah.
Because you forget how to pattern and find fish, like we're talking about tonight. then those electronics don't. You can find a fish. Don't get me wrong, but you got to know where to start and where to kind of hone in.
We're very lucky where we live because there are so many bass. Our lake's full of bass. And when I say some of the things that I say about, well, if you're not catching them, keep moving. You can do that here. There's some lakes that don't have the population that ours does, and so you do have to settle in, fish, make sure there's one not there and stuff, and work hard at it. But here, really, if I'm not catching them, I'm going to keep on moving, keep moving around, keep shucking and jiving, find something, because they're biting somewhere. You just ain't been in on it yet.
Right.
And those points, you'll fish those points until they get good and healthy again. The fish will actually be real pretty and fat, and they've got over that post-spawn look, that real skinny, scrawny looking, emaciated, poor little old bass, that you catch some of them right now. You catch some right now, look pretty scurvy, but it doesn't take them long here because we have such a huge shad population for them to recoup and get fat again.
My head just went in the gutter.
And
sorry.
chubby. Yeah, well, I'm sure you did.
I was like, most men like the bigger ones than the skinnier ones.
Yeah, that's right.
But we're talking about fishing. So, yeah. Anyway.
But as soon as they're done kind of feeding up, then they start choosing when they feed. Then they don't feed, just because the current's moving. Then they'll pull out there and they'll feed for 30 minutes, and then they're kind of done for a few hours. And then they'll pull back out there and they'll feed again for a few minutes, we can only hope that we live on the lake. I feel like that's what'll happen when we go to heaven. They bite all the time, because down here they don't bite all the time, and I realize that I make it sound like they do. But even here, after they get fed up a little bit and they get kind of recouped from the post-spawn kind of situation, then they start choosing little time windows where they feed for an hour or so, and then they're done for 3 or 4 hours, and then you got to start finding them and getting close to them, and that's when they also start getting in brush piles a little bit, getting around some wood and stuff like that out on those points, which, with the way the water is flowing this year, that's going to happen 2 or 3, 4 weeks later than what it would normally happen, that those fish actually seek out that brush during the daylight hours. It's going to take place a lot later. Now, mind you, every day they do go and find a little piece of wood, but it's normally once it gets dark. Gotcha. I always kind of imagine it as such that they don't want to stand out in the open in the dark and not, not have something to kind of hunker in next to, and I think they pull right to the first little piece of brush they can come to, and they get in that, and that's where they stand.
I always was told also that at night, and we're transitioning to night now. We'll still get to lure selection here in a little bit, but at night, I fish those Thursday nighters. I fish quite a few night tournaments too. I always hear about guys that always fish dusted on lights. They like where light's reflecting on the water, and they say those fish will move up there because A, the insects will feed around those refractions on the water, but B, they can see better too to make casts without using fluorescent lights and black lights and those kind of things. Is there anything in your experience you've seen where...
And it attracts minnows.
So light, you do agree with the light around...
That's the whole idea in using like crappie lights.
Yeah,
is they attract the minnows. It attracts the bait fish to it, the bugs, everything.
Yeah, it's a whole cycle. And it attracts the bugs attract the minnows attract the smaller fish, the bigger fish eat the smaller fish, and there we go.
We normally don't use those lights until late at night.
Right.
There's always
look for them.
Yeah,
and don't say use them.
Well,
you chuck a light off the side and see if it happens.
No, we know where there's
awesome spot if you can pull that.
We know
off.
where there's a handful of them. All right, and we don't use them until it gets late at night. Probably that 2 o'clock in the morning
That's
type
an
situation.
all-night tournament.
Yes.
Yeah, when everything else is exhausted.
In a 3-hour night tournament, we don't use those. Because the fish don't have time to gather up under them. It's only dark for about an hour. So the minnows don't get collected and stuff like that.
Right.
So
All right, man.
But
whew, this is like info night. It's like Info Wednesday.
it's pretty simple for me. When we get out there on those points, when you're on a point, they're eating. So throw something accordingly. Either throw something shad oriented, throw one of these big swim baits, something like this right here. A big paddling swim bait.
You can aim it like that way.
Yeah,
So you
sorry.
see it. No, it's okay. Yeah, I have two kinds. And I grabbed these Berkeleys, and we're just gonna throw out the selfish plug because I mean you can buy them all, it doesn't matter. But there's one.
A big swim bait's always good.
Yep. The other one up there is a glide, and the difference, we can open them up. Swim bait. And I'll crack it open for you, just so we all understand here. And because I know we do podcasts, it streams on Apple too. So, but for those that don't know, this is a big sucker. But a swim bait typically has a paddle style tail, correct?
Yep.
So it's a cast and retrieve, but you can see how it's a swimming bait. So he's going to rock back and forth. See, like so.
To say it has a ton of action, it just it looks like a shad coming through the water. I mean, it really looks very natural to a fish.
What length of bait this time of year do you think? If you're gonna elect to throw a swim bait?
I tell you what, and it's probably here on Lake of the Ozarks more than anything. I don't throw little stuff. I throw 6-inch stuff or bigger. Right now with my swim baits. Well, if I'm going to catch one on it, I want it to be a good one.
Gotcha.
This is a glide style.
Okay, so a glide has no paddle tail. He's jointed, and sometimes there's 1, 2, 3 joints, for more action. But he's more of, I'm going to kind of turn this way so everybody can see. He's like this.
And it doesn't go quite as, it doesn't go very deep. That's good.
Is that pretty good?
It's kind of like an underwater Zara spook.
Correct. That's keep your rod tip down,
and
give
just
it a short twitch, and it's going to just
You actually don't have to twitch most of them. If it's working right, you don't have to twitch
it.
But
I use cheap swim baits, so I have to twitch them.
But you just wind it along real easy, and it just goes back and forth real easy.
Yep. If you have a crappy swim bait, you might have to twitch it.
You might have to twitch it if it's a real crappy one.
Because you do know swim baits are anywhere from $9 to $500.
Yes,
there's just whatever you can do.
If you go on the Romans website and you spend $400 for one,
it's like okay. So here's I brought reference tools.
I've never done that, honey. By the way,
I've never spent
$400 on a swim bait.
$14.99. The Storm Arashi glide bait is $39.99. You've got Gantarelle, $44.99, which is a jackal bait. They're all different variations. That's like super cool. I wish you guys could see that up close, but those are badass colors, aren't they?
They are beautiful.
They really are nice. And these are my prices. I'm sure you can go online. You can find them probably at some of those online retailers and save you $4 or $5 and get some free shipping. But I always tell people when the bite's on, it really doesn't matter what the price is. You just need to have it. So buy two because you're gonna lose one, right?
That's right.
Okay, so that gets you the swim baits down. So
I also throw a crankbait. I did
not bring any crankbaits.
Oh, and when I say a crankbait, probably my favorite's a 6XD, Strike King. I throw a Norman, deep little end, quite a bit. It's a good size. I throw the DD22 a lot in a Norman, just because of its overall size. It's a little bit bulkier size, and it doesn't go really deep. It's not a super deep runner. It's about a 12, 15-foot runner.
We should have a whole episode on running crankbaits deep because,
Sure.
You can get one really deep if you use small line.
That's right.
But the cool thing about DD22 is you can put it down in the brush and they'll generally back out if you let them back up, and they'll generally hit it when you back them out.
And if not, it's
cool.
an $8 crankbait. You can buy more.
I know. They used to be like $3.99 when I started.
I know.
They were 42 cents when you started.
My favorite... Oh, shit. My favorite thing to throw this time of the year, though, is a jig. I mean, I throw a jig 99% of the time, and I throw it out on those points. I have one almost always tied on that looks like a shad, that is shad oriented. It's white, and then I have green pumpkin ones and stuff like that. My trailers are going to paddle. They're going to swim. It's going to have something on it that moves. Can you reach
underneath the jigs? I grabbed those Zoom baits right there. And that's an Ultra Vibe. So that's kind of close.
Yeah, that'll work.
You know, and I was trying to pull it out because that was actually my giveaway pile. I drew a winner this week.
Oh, sweet.
So yeah, for our subscriptions onto YouTube. So I tried to match the colors there too. See.
I use a.
Let me take one out so I can show it.
I use a 5/8 to a 3/4 ounce most of the time. And the reason I use so heavy, I
need to go
like
get some
to.
other ones. This
I like to get it done. I don't want to spend a lot of time out there.
I can't zoom in. We don't have a good production crew yet because it's just you and I. So it's fixed camera. But anyway, you can get them with like a vibrating style tail or one that displaces more water. They actually can walk.
There's lots of them.
I don't even like this one, so I give it away.
There's lots of them. There's a number of different paddling tails, out there. We actually made one. Bojangles made one. It's called a Cook Crawl, and we made it for the Corey and Roger Cook. They throw one that's got a little bit bigger legs on it, and it looks like something swatting flies.
Do you know where those where the Hibdon hammer jigs are on the other side of the store? Grab those Yamamoto baits for me, will you? They're right next to it.
But you want something. You want something. I throw a heavier jig out there a lot of times because I don't want to spend a lot of time. I want it to get to the bottom, get down there, and I want to move it along pretty fast. And because for the most part, get it in their face, get it out of there. Keep moving, make another cast. If they're there, they're gonna bite it. So. I throw a little bit heavier size this time of the year, and that's from 5 foot deep all the way out to 20 foot deep. I throw those bigger jigs because, like I say, you want the feeding fish. You want to be around the ones that are eating. So if they're not eating, move on. Keep moving. If you take the time to get a ½ ounce down there, you're taking twice as long with your cast, and there's just no use in that. There's no need for it. Because you're not going to get a ton more bites. You're going to get basically the same bites, that you would on a ½ ounce, only with the bigger bait.
Look at that guy.
Yeah.
So
got little kicker legs on it.
Yeah, that's a little bit better along the idea.
And who makes this?
Bait. This is a Yamacraw.
Really?
That's Yamamoto, yeah. And the crazy part is, I don't even know if they can see that.
It's a Rage Tails. What it is.
It kind of is. It's like Strike King's Rage, but. The crazy part is I never would have bought these because, I didn't think Yamamoto made a crawdad, but they were on sale. So obviously they didn't sell because they're kind of pricey because Yamamoto is very expensive anyway.
Yeah.
But this one doesn't feel like it's got the stuff in it. I think it's just a plastic one. But I think you could shorten that down and put it on a bigger jig, and it's pretty awesome, actually.
Some of the stuff that's in the original Cincos they've outlawed.
Really?
Did you know that?
We should. No, yeah. I did not. See, I thought, and... Are we going to have the Cinco discussion?
That sea sand you can't even buy anymore.
I thought it was silica sand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's an inside. If you guys ready for this inside trader secret? Every bait out there except for Gary Yamamoto baits uses salt, and salt just floats in some water, sinks in others. But the Cinco, Senko, was really known for being an Sinko. It sank much faster than every other bait out there, and the reason is it didn't use salt. They used sand. Yep. So they had figured out a way, Gary Yamamoto figured out a way to inject sand into a bait that made it sink much faster, which was awesome for tackle store guys because we sold more and more baits because one hook, the sand would just cut right through it and tear it in half. Yeah. And we would sell 10 to 1 Yamamoto baits over everything else. Problem is they got up to like $9 a bag, and just
75 cents a piece.
Yeah, but guys still buy them. But just like anything else in the industry, and I'm not picking on them, but like, for example, this was last year, this was a hot commodity. This was the 7.5-inch cut tail worm. And we'll get into worms later, but Yamamoto this cool tail, and they basically just cut the ribbon tail off, and that's like the hot thing. But this one is $8 for 5.
Yeah.
It was like, jeez. But we sell them, and everyone else does too. And I mean, even if I'm $1 higher than everybody else, that's still $6.99 for 5. And that's crazy. But there's cut tail worms. I like. We were in a bait selection. You were on jigs.
Worms, jigs.
So we got to worms. Shaky head in summer's pretty good also.
Yep.
And we're.
I'm kind of the same way with my shaky heads.
Yeah, we're like 40 minutes in. I kind of want to go faster.
It's one of the deals with my shaky head. for the most part, I'm going to use a half ounce 90% of the time.
Right. So what I got into was, I don't even care about the brands, but there are several styles of shaky heads, believe it or not. And a shaky head is basically a screw or a peg that you can peg it in and Texas rig it and fish it off the bottom. And I know these on the video is not very good, but this one's just a standard round bend hook. And a round bend hook, let me see if I can put it, I think I can lay it against your chest and you can see it. Too light.
Too far away.
Yeah, too far away. But it's a round bend hook. There's offset hooks like a Texas rig worm hook.
Yep.
There's short hooks. That's all personal preference, more so than, we all have what we believe in. And Dion consider and say you should use a big, long, wide gap hook. I could say use a short 3/0 hook because I have more confidence. But at the end of the day, I always say dance with who brought you. If you have confidence in that hook and it works for you.
It all depends on what you put on it.
That's right. The length of the worm, the size of the worm, the
diameter,
of the worm.
The diameter of the worm dictates to me which head I throw.
We talked about that last week, didn't we?
Yeah, a little bit.
I never can gauge what we talk about after we get off the air or when we're on the air. Because sometimes we have two shows.
The worm stuff's pretty basic for me. I throw two colors. I throw a dark color or I throw a plum color for the most part when it comes to a ribbon tail type worm this time of the year. And I'm pretty basic on my hooks. I throw a 3/0 or a 4/0 EWG heavy wire hook because of the flex. It won't flex and you hook more fish. If you throw the lighter wire, you'll catch 99% of them, but the one you lose is a big one.
Right.
Because the hook will flex. If it hits the bone on a 5 or 6 pounder's mouth, you'll come in, your worm will be pulled down the shank of the hook, and that hook will be turned out just a little bit. That fish you didn't land. He came off. Where the EWG style super lines don't flex.
Right.
And so therefore it's got no choice. Either it goes through him or it doesn't.
Sure.
And so I would rather it not go through him as to hook him and lose him,
Okay.
But the heavy wire goes through him.
Got a tech question.
All right.
How long after dark is it before the fish are actually in a feeding mode, in your opinion? Feels like the first hour after dark is always tough.
It's a dead time. There's till 11 o'clock at night. It's kind of tough. You're fishing for just a few bites. Don't be sniffing on that
power bait always stinks. I got it on my fingers. I need some algae.
There's
dock foam.
There's a couple hour period of time there where you're going to struggle a little bit. And it's simply because right now the fish are out on those points, and now they got to make a little move. They got to move to a pile of brush or something like that. And the time that it takes them to make that move, they got to move in there, they got to find their piece of brush, and they kind of got to settle into it. So you do have an hour and a half, 2 hours of right after it gets dark. It's going to suck a little bit. It's going to be hard.
You prefer a jig? I know brush hogs are really popular. Creature baits are popular.
Creature baits.
Beaver baits on the back of a jig are popular. Magnum lizards are typically...
No, I'm not going to throw that beaver on the back of my jig this time of the year. It's got to swim for me. It's got to kick.
Got to have some action.
It's got to kick and flounce around a little bit.
Because
it's
crawdads are a steak and shads are cheeseburgers.
Yeah, and when a crawdad's moving right now, he's kicking. He's coming through the water. So, but you want something that moves on the back of your jig. That's for sure. And everybody makes one. I mean, that Yamamoto, I didn't think he made one, but now he does. But like I say, between, I use a Bojangles, I use a Strike King. That would work right there. Anything that's got some motion, reaction, innovation, makes some good swimming trailers. Zoom makes a lot of good swimming trailers. You just want to get away from your crawdads and stuff like that.
Okay. In the pile here, I have two things here that we're moving on. It's getting thinner. See, I'm moving it off to the side. I didn't do bad, did I?
No, you did good. You picked out a lot of good stuff.
Here's the next one. I have these. This is a dip and dye in a container and a pin dye that you can turn your bait chartreuse or red or blue or orange. I guess the line is when is it time to dye? DYE.
Well,
is there? Do you even use that stuff?
I do, but I normally do it in the earlier spring from, up till the spawn. Once it hits summertime and the time of the year that we're in right now, I don't mess with it quite as much because it's just not important.
Right.
If you're not catching him, you're not around him,
Right.
for the most part. Do I believe in color? Yep, I like certain colors. Certain colors look good, down at certain water clarities and stuff like that. So I make sure that my baits look right. But to say that you need those little tips on the end of that swimming craw or something, you really don't. He's going to bite it before he ever gets that much. He's not going to examine it before he bites it. He's going to club the hell out of it when it comes by.
Gotcha.
So
club the hell out of it.
So this time of the year, now sometimes when I throw a green pumpkin worm, then I will put a little chartreuse on the tail of it. But for the most part, in the summertime months, that's not really that big a deal.
Okay.
To me.
Okay. Next on my pile here, I have this one's kind of easy to read. You know what this is? Can you read it?
Plug knockers.
Sinker stops.
Sinker stops.
So these are sinker stops. These are basically just a little rubber ball, and it will keep your weight from sliding.
Keeps your weight from sliding.
Do you at this time of year, do you want your weight to slide or not slide? Or
when I'm fishing out on points, I don't care. I just soon have my sinker moving and have it away from my bait a lot of times.
It's kind of easier to unsnag them too if they're
loose.
loose.
Yep. But as soon as they start creeping into that brush, then I want my sinker attached to my bait.
All right. And there's lots of ways you can keep one stop from sliding. You don't have to use a rubber stop. You can use
sinker stops. You can put above your sinker. They make screw-in sinkers.
Yep.
That screw in the front of your worm. That's my preference. Toothpicks.
Yep, toothpicks.
Somebody in the crowd.
I think they will. You got to be careful with toothpicks though, because they can abrade your line, and then you can get break off. So that's kind of important. I sometimes use a dental threader and just a couple rubber bands.
You can.
You can pull them through. If you're in a bind, you can make that work too.
There's lots of ways. Pegging your sinker is something that's kind of your preference.
Mm-hmm.
I use the old gambler style sinker, which screws into the top of it, because when you hook a fish, and at some point in time, I will bring a rod and reel, and I'll show you what I mean by this. By screwing that sinker down in the top of your worm, when you set the hook on a fish, the sinker drags your worm up your line, because your worst nightmare is to set the hook on a fish and come in and your worm is pulled down in the shank of your hook.
Gotcha.
Because you're going to lose that one 50% of the time at least.
We can do that next week. I'll lay that out.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that in a little more detail. Is there still only one company that makes those?
I'm not even sure if they make them still. You can still buy them because I have some.
I'm careful about not promoting because I honestly don't know if they make them or not. But Gambler had the best screw-in head out there.
Tungsten made one a little bit. True Tungsten made one, but they didn't put a sleeve in it, so it didn't work quite as good. The original Gambler ones were the best, hands down.
Yep.
And there is another company in Florida that's making them now, but
right.
I'm not sure.
We'll find out. We'll find out, and we'll do that under the shameless plug next week. Even though we don't, neither one of us obviously are sponsored by either one of them. They're actually good things to have in your boat because they're pretty handy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spinnerbait this time of year? Yay or nay?
Out there in that current, if that current's blowing hard enough, and the further you get up the river on a lot of these lakes, a spinnerbait's a good way to catch them. You catch them at the same deal out of the current. They're going to be a little bit shallower for the most part. So slinging a spinnerbait right up on them points is awful good.
If you can see this, and I'm sorry guys, but this is called a Colorado Willow Tandem. So the Colorado is a smaller round blade, the Willow is the longer blade. Then there is what's called a double Colorado, which is two of those. But at nighttime, a lot of guys like to use one single big giant Colorado blade, and they call them thumpers. And the reason is they like more displacement, more vibration. They use darker colors.
Yep.
And is this true or false?
Sure.
Black and blue. Black cast a bigger hue at night.
Dark colors, they see the silhouette. What they say.
Yeah, I call it a hue.
Yeah, they see the silhouette of the colors more so than the actual colors. So your darker colors are better. Me and my wife have proved it to me in the last 4 or 5 years. We stick with our green pumpkin stuff when it gets after dark because it's dark. It's a very dark, dim color. I probably wouldn't throw watermelon type color after dark, stuff like that. And with the spinnerbait deal, you're actually having to draw him away from a piece of cover after dark. Odds are, So you need to throw something out there that's making a lot of racket. So a bigger round blade, something that really thumps and throbs, is going to be a better bet for you. And like I say, that's why a lot of guys throw those bigger round blades after dark, is
Gotcha.
because you're having to draw that fish somewhat away from a piece of brush a lot of times. Where a jig and a worm, I'm putting it right in the tree where he lives, and that's kind of the whole key.
All right.
And by pegging my sinker, works easier. Your sinker doesn't fall on one side of the limb and your worm's on this side of the limb. When you peg your sinker, when you're throwing it in brush, it's right with your worm the whole time, and it goes in and out of the brush easier. So, but when you're fishing out on a point, you don't have to peg your sinker because you don't really care if your sinker's with your worm at all. I also see topwaters laid out here.
That's the last pile I have, and I brought the 4 variations. I have a popper, which is a standard popper.
We have a popper, a popper.
Yep.
Which has been around for a gazillion years.
A Zara spook.
A Zara spook, which is
as we said earlier, walks the dog kind of
bait.
like the glide bait zigzag on the surface.
And then you have kind of a spluttering topwater, one
that's a tail prop, which basically a prop bait, I guess you could say.
It's basically a prop bait.
Yep.
Which your original prop baits were devil's horses. Now they're chopos.
Torpedoes.
Torpedoes. Yep. Yeah, that was the original, probably.
Yep. Well, we had cicada. We talked cicadas last week, and I had somebody this week said, "Dude, a tiny torpedo with a blade in the front and the back.
Yeah.
You just jerk it one time, and the blades flip. That is cicada heaven." They said they caught so many fish.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't have any torpedoes. Sorry.
And then
my old ones out there, $40.
Then you got a buzz bait, and that's good for making lots of racket.
So the reason I laid all those out because a popper bait you can stall. A walking bait was going to zigzag like an injured fish, but you can also stop it. A buzz bait and a prop bait is a cast and retrieve. You really can't.
That's right.
There are some techniques there, but for the most part, you're going to throw it out and reel it in.
That's right.
What's your go-to for tonight? Summer patterns, or you just kind of mix and match, find out what works for you?
I throw a popper way more in the springtime or in the summertime than I do walking baits. Because I feel like I'm drawing him. I have to draw him from a little bit deeper sometimes. So I throw a bait that makes quite a bit of racket, so I throw that popper a lot, and I throw it real erratically. I pop it real hard 2 or 3 times, and then I might pluke it real easy once.
Pluke it?
Pluke it, yeah.
So I would say it's more of a plunk it than a pluke it.
Well, either way, whichever way you want to.
Plunk might be too big of a splash.
But basically,
he's went right over that. He's like, not going.
Yeah,
there.
I'm not starting with that.
Okay. Your words are awesome. I just like the way you describe things. Pluke it. It's like ploosh.
But anyways, I'm gonna throw something I can make quite a bit of racket with. So my preference is a popper of some sort. My walking type stuff is done either right at daylight or right at dark, and for the most part, that's on up into the fall, when the gizzards get a little bit bigger and they start running along the banks and getting in around the rocks and stuff like that. Summertime, I'm a popper. I throw a popper 99% of the time in the summer.
Okay.
That's good about stuff. All we got laid out.
That was some good stuff tonight, huh? Did you like that?
Yeah.
I like picking your brain
great.
Sometimes. So, well, in the true format of the show, we'll make this pretty easy. Angler of the week. I think Angler of the week goes to anybody that's out there doing it in the summertime. It's hot and it's brutal and it's a grind. And if you're out there competing, you have a passion in bass fishing, then Angler of the week goes to you guys for sticking with it and giving it a shot, because it's a good time to fish, but it's a tough time to fish.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, luckily enough, we have that high water, so it's working for us right now. Everything. And like I say, we've got some guys in the crowd that said, "Oh, it was like shutting off light switch." That's going to happen. As soon as the current quits, they're going to quit too for a little while. But like I say, one thing's for sure: if you're not catching them, keep moving.
Yep.
Keep hunting them, because they're biting somewhere. And like I say, when you land on them, the guys that beat us last week said that we took off at 6:30 last week in the tournament, and they said at 6:40 they had their initial 16 pounds in the boat.
That's a good whack.
Me and Lawson caught our initial 5 in 10 casts, last week. And but we had been out there. We knew exactly where they were biting. And when we pulled up, threw the trolling motor over, lined up the GPS, made a cast, and started catching them, and that's how they can be in that current, right now. So, but that's working hard.
Turn that ball on.
That's getting out there and looking and searching and finding them. But like I say, in the summertime and this time of the year, if you're not catching them, keep moving. Just keep looking. My son, he fishes about 3 nights a week now. He fishes about everything he can get into. And
Lawson told me today he's going to St. Clair.
Yeah.
He tell you that?
Well,
or has he told you that? I might not have.
He's probably going to go up there and catch a bunch of smallmouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's gonna be kind of fun.
But the thing of it is, I fished with him last Thursday, and we caught him. We caught him pretty quick and pretty easy. And I guarantee you, we fished no less than 30 places before we came in a 3-hour tournament. That's a lot of moving. That's a lot of moving. I mean, I'm old. That's a lot of up and down.
You're not old.
But we landed on them 3 or 4 times. Out of all of those, we landed, and it's just every cast. And that's what you got to do. You just got to tell yourself, okay, if I'm not catching them, I just need to move. And real unassuming places. Sometimes they're the best. The places where you think, boy, that don't look like much of a point, and that's where they'll be, right. Because you can't really see what's under the water as well as we would all like to think, and the current affects all that stuff a lot of different ways, So, you get out there, and if you catch one off of a spot, guess what? Just know exactly where you caught him, and at some time the next day, he's going to bite there again,
Or find a spot just like it.
Or find another spot just like it.
You find 5 of them, you're rolling.
Yeah. So, yeah. We break it down pretty quick and, hopefully pretty efficiently.
Not shift gears, but I had an earlier question was how do people get involved? We know there's high school. We know there's, opportunities for people to fish, and I guess I can answer it for you. To answer some of those questions is, get online. Here in Missouri, what if you want to get into bass fishing, if you want to fish a tournament, the easiest way is we have to have permits. And most states tournaments have to be permitted. Go online, look at the permits. There's always a phone number. Pick up the phone, give them a call. They'll tell you what you can and can't do, and you can go fishing. It's pretty easy.
The regatta.
It's called a regatta. Well,
regatta
it's an organized parade of boats.
That's all it is.
That's what a regatta means.
You can go online. How do you go online to find out what the regatta is?
In Missouri. It's Missouri State Water Patrol or the Missouri State Highway Patrol, and you have to get a permit through them. But
it's a water patrol though.
It is, and you can get a permit. But in any state, contact your local club. That's a great place to start your bass fishing endeavors.
Sure.
Join the BSS or the MLF, sign up as a co-angler and fish. If you're a high schooler, talk to your local school, start a team up. There's opportunities and people out there that will help. And if you don't have a boat, reach out, get into social media, join a bass fishing group that you're familiar with, make a social network, go fishing with. A lot of clubs have non-boating anglers that you can join and fish too. The important thing I think, Dion, that we've talked about tonight is you need to get involved. Enjoy the sport. It's a great sport.
I do a lot of talking to a lot of the high school teams and everything around the country, and there's a lot of times I'll go and talk to several teams at the same time. And do you know how many you have to have a team?
2. Yeah, 2.
2 people.
Yep.
That's
One
it.
team.
Yeah, that's a team.
Yep.
And you can have your own club at your own high school, even if there's only you and your girlfriend. I mean, or something, yep. Or you and your best buddy. You can actually organize your own team and compete in a lot of the same tournaments that, teams that have 20 kids, stuff like that. And it's a good way to get started because you have, for the most part, you have volunteers. You have guys, you have boaters that take you fishing and show you stuff, and you learn stuff from them. Stuff like that. It's a great way to go,
That's right.
and fishing I can't, I hear people every now and then somebody will walk up to me and, oh, well, I don't fish. I'm like, what? How is that? How do you not? Because like you say,
they're vegetarians.
Yeah, I guess.
Nice. No. Well, I mean, everyone started learning to fish because they put it on the dinner table.
Yeah,
I mean, the caveman did.
I've never done it any other way. And the crazy thing is, I mean, you fished all your life for the most part. Even when you was a kid.
I mean, I was really fortunate. I grew up on a farm, 88 acres. My grandfather had an adjoining farm. They gave my parents a piece of land. They built a house on it, and there was a 2-acre lake in between us. And I would grab my and I think I said it last week. I stole my dad's crap. He had a Mitchell 308 spinning reel. I remember it like in the back of my head. I'd go to the garage and get that tackle box. Had a Coach Dog bass and bug, some little beetle spins. And I went up the hill, went through my grandparents' house, through the white picket fence, and it really was a white picket fence. Walked through the pasture, had to watch out for the big bull because he would charge us, and if you had to hop the electric fence and zap your balls trying to get over there to get to the water, that's what we did.
Yep.
And there was the spot. It was the what we call the slough. And it wasn't a slough, but it was just a little indention in the very back of the lake. It was the deepest hole, and that's where the dark one lived. And we called it the dark one. There was one giant bass, and we were all going to go get it. But the thing is, and I don't want to get too long on this, but there was another pond the adjoining property had, and when we had a lot of rain, there was a spillway. And fish would wash out. We'd have to sneak over there.
Catch them back out.
Catch them moving back over to our pond, and that's what we did growing up, But we've caught those big ones, and that's my childhood memories. That's what was great. That's what made me want to fish a bass tournament. It was awesome. I mean, we ran a trout line on our farm pond.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it was stocked with catfish, and we set a line, had a buddy of mine, we had a John boat that got smashed by a tree, and we cut it in half, and we poppered it together and used roofing tar so it would float, and we threw it on the top of a Volkswagen Beetle, and we would go to the creeks and we would run trout lines, and we'd set lines, and I mean, it's awesome stuff. It's great memories, and you can make great memories fishing. This is not. You don't have to spend $200,000 on a boat and a truck and go out and fish tournaments. Drop us a line. We'll walk you through it. You can fish anywhere.
I go with my grandsons walking the bank every now and then.
Best time to do it this year. This time of year too.
Just as much fun as when I'm out in a, $100,000 bass boat.
Yeah. So yeah, as a matter of fact, one of our faithful viewers, Daryl Cook, said, if you guys are a high schooler and you want to get involved in Missouri, there's a high school bass fishing conference on Saturday, December the 7th in St. Louis. So you can get involved. There's a lot of opportunities out there. You just got to dig a little.
Yep.
And if not, under the shameless plug section, drop us an email. You can reach us at askrealtalk@gmail.com. We'll answer those questions. We'll help you get connected. It's not a big deal. Love to do it.
You guys got one of the cooler bass clubs too in this part of the world, and bass clubs are, that's a cool way to go too. I mean, it's really a nice,
it's affordable,
fairly inexpensive way of getting out there and fishing a lot.
Dude, I got to tell you, so we've had this bass club that I've been a part of, and for upwards of 20 years, I'd say, and it's so cool when we get. Last month we got a couple new members, one 16, 15, something like that, and we told him that he couldn't fish because he needed an adult with the boat. He got a 21-year-old buddy to sign up, and they went out, and I saw we were fishing, back to my magic spot that we talk about, the spot.
No, they hole jumped you.
Yeah. Yep. So I see them out there, and they're fishing a deep D metal boat. Yeah. They got the trolling motor down. They got their rash shirts on, and man, them guys are fishing hard, and it made my heart feel good.
Yep.
I'm like, these boys are, and I wheeled up on them, shut down, said, how you guys doing? So we got 3. I said, man, keep grinding, you'll get them. Didn't want to tell them I had 1163 in the boat.
Yeah. Didn't want to brag.
If they would have beat me on the first turn, I would have quit. I was like, damn, boys. But yeah, it's a great sport. It's really good. So yeah, reach out to us. We have a great network. We'll get you in there. We'll get you fishing.
Lots of info out there. And it's not that hard to find.
Yeah. Got anything else?
Nope.
That was a lot tonight. I mean, you guys feel more than welcome. This will be posted up on YouTube. You can watch this one over and over and over again, because I guarantee you're going to go back and listen to this one, because I milked old Dion for the information tonight. He was the dairy cow of bass fishing tonight. I got all the milk out of him I could get. So we'll get him fed up for next week, and we'll get some more information. But in the meantime, make sure you tune into us on youtube.com. We'll have them all posted up there. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, and as always, you can watch us live right here at Bryant's Osage Outdoors here in Missouri. Next week, we'll bring in, we've kind of been alternating every other week.
Yeah.
We'll bring in somebody and screw up the whole flow, and we won't talk fishing. We'll talk, crazy crap. But we'll find somebody to come in next week. And in the meantime, you guys all stay safe, stay dry, stay cool. And we'll see you next week here at Real Unfiltered Talk. And on behalf of Dion and I, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.